Welcome to the Content Matters podcast, where digital content and marketing pros talk shop. Tech may be changing fast, but great content is timeless. Get inside tips, trends, and practical know-how from the top minds in the digital content industry. Sponsored by Ingenix, the uniquely agile content management platform. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Content Matters podcast, where we get to talk to digital marketing and digital experience pros. I'm your host, Barb, and I am very happy to introduce our guest today, Matt Heinz, who is the president of Heinz Marketing. Matt has 15 years, probably plus experience in sales and marketing. He's the author and he's an author and the sought-after speaker on all things related to sales and marketing. Especially, I've seen a lot of people talking to you about content marketing today, and that's why we're here. We wanted to pick Matt's brains on all the different goody aspects of ABM. So welcome, Matt. Thanks for coming.
Oh man, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
I'm really excited. This is a really good topic for me as a marketer myself. I'm trying to help organizations understand the value of account-based marketing and what it actually means. And I know it means a ton of different things depending on who you talk to. So before we kind of dive into deeper questions, I thought maybe we could just get your quick description of account-based marketing and how it compares to lead gen and demand generation programs.
Well, the concept of account-based is sort of a version of overall demand generation, sales pipeline development. I think, John Miller, who, one of the co-founder of Marketo and is the founder of Engagio, I think, I heard him say this first. He says, a lot of marketing is fishing with nets, and ABM, account-based marketing, is fishing with spears. It's knowing exactly who your most important sales targets are and having a more intentional effort to market and sell to them. And to me, that it includes not only having a understanding of the members of the buying committee and a coordinated approach to engage them, but also working in an integrated way between sales and marketing to have a cohesive, integrated approach across your entire organization to increase velocity and conversion of those most important accounts.
So there's a lot of things going on there in what you just said. When you talk to companies in the B2B marketing space, what are some of the bigger challenges in trying to make all those connections and make account-based marketing work properly?
Well, I think the two things that we find are the biggest challenges for account-based marketers. One is data management, knowing that you've got these more complex deals, more complex buying environments, and you're really in an account-based model trying to coordinate activity across multiple channels and multiple efforts. So sharing that data and leveraging that data to have a better next step, to have a better next conversation with the right prospects at the right time is critical and also a very big challenge. The other challenge we see a lot of marketers face is coordination between sales and marketing. Historically, those teams are used to marketing generating leads and collateral and sales picking it up from there. But I think with account-based, you tend to see marketing and sales teams working together at almost every stage of the buying process. So having a tight coordination of message, of approach, of offer, of sequencing of communication is really critical to doing account-based well. And that's a fairly new discipline and a new muscle for a lot of organizations to build.
Is part of the problem with that maybe the market maturity? When you're in early stage markets versus, well-known markets, does sales and marketing work differently together? Does it impact the way you do ABM?
It's a great question. I think that it does. I think for sure. I also think that, just any level of coordination across departments that report into different functions sometimes can just be a challenge. I mean, I see marketing teams that are large, struggle to coordinate efforts across channels. When you're separated in silos where maybe an email team works separately from a social team, separate from a PR team, separate from a direct mail team. Coordinating efforts takes time and effort and is complicated. It's the same goes for coordinating between sales and marketing. But we've seen plenty of data that indicates it's not a binary thing. It's not a matter of you do it or you don't. I think there's various levels of attempted integration between sales and marketing, even if it's not perfect, that still increases sales velocity, increases overall sales and revenue impact in the market.
And I think technology also plays a role here, because sales uses one type of technology and marketing uses another, but doesn't the ABM tech stack kind of combine the two of them together?
Yeah, it certainly can, and I do think that a good technology stack, marketing and sales technology stack, can increase effectiveness and scalability for both teams for sure. But technology is not your strategy. Technology is an implementer of your strategy, and so I think the effective use and implementation of technology in account-based work requires knowing how you're going to coordinate and engage with those prospects to begin with.
Okay. So I'm just kind of wrapping my head around that kind of stuff. One of the things that I've always found is the biggest challenge. Well, there's two big challenges that I've seen happen. One is trying to figure out who are the right people that you want to talk to, and you need the data from that you're pulling out of your different technologies to help you figure that out. And then the other one is, what is the right content to create, and how do you scale the personalization that you need for account-based marketing? Like, so how do you, for the technology side first, like, how do you kind of pull those technologies together? Like, what are the right technologies you'd want to pull together to figure that out?
Well, I think you got to look at, the buying journey first for your target audience, and look at the channels you're using to engage with them, and ensure that, the most prominent channels and engagement points for your customers are tied into the tools that you're using. I think that marketing automation, your marketing automation platform as a marketer and your CRM system as a salesperson are the two systems that most likely need to be combined together. I think there are an awful lot of interesting advanced tools such as Engagio and Terminus and Demandbase and others that require a level of coordination to make account-based work well. But at its simplest, account-based is just a coordinated external effort to target the companies that mean the most to you. So the tech stack doesn't need to be anything more than just a telephone and email address and some level of message coordination between the sales and marketing team, which sometimes can be as simple as building a spreadsheet, So I think, we encourage companies when they're thinking about doing account-based work and when they're looking at ways to scale it, to make sure they have the fundamentals done first, to make sure the fundamentals include a real strong understanding of who your target account is, a real strong understanding of who the decision makers are within that target account, and a good, crisp coordination of what's going to happen when at each stage of the buying journey across sales and marketing for each of those members. When you have that foundation in place, you have the basis for implementing technology that's going to be a lot more successful.
And does content, in your mind, play a really important role in that process? Like, how do you figure out, well, if you're looking at the buyer's journey, obviously you're trying to figure out what information are they looking for at each stage of the journey? What information can you provide them? So, but how do you get to the level where you can kind of more personalize that at a higher scale for this type of marketing?
Yeah, there's two ways you do that. One is, if you want to personalize it in an automated way, you have to have your data sources integrated such that you can use an artificial intelligence tool, artificial intelligence capabilities to customize the next step message, right? Based on the unique variables of that account and that customer at that point in time. And without having the AI tools, the next step would be to give your sales reps and your customer facing teams the ability to have that personalized conversation next. So for example, if, instead of just saying, well, here's a customer that's at the proposal stage, everyone gets the same thing. What if you said, well, here's a decision maker at a healthcare company that has already seen X and Y from you and has this kind of objection and has been spending, the last 3 days looking at this type of content on your website. What does all that mean in terms of what the next conversation is that you should have with them? Like, there could be some technology in the background that helps do that work, but to be able to surface that insight and to give the talking points to the sales reps on what to do next, some of that is leveraging big data. Some of that is just having a plan up front and then reinforcing and training with your sales reps how to extract the right message and the right next step from that data.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you think a content strategy is really important to have here as well, where you're creating all this great content for your website, but then, or for all your marketing programs, but then you want to customize it on some level for specific accounts? Like, does a content strategy kind of help build that content in a way that makes it reusable, more scalable?
Absolutely. I mean, this is all about content strategy.
Yeah.
I think, we can talk about, what's your sales strategy. We can talk about what's your lead, your lead scoring strategy, or how to get the right person at the right time. But it's all about what is the content you put in front of someone. And I think too often, people think content in front of for a prospect needs to be some big polished long piece. But just because it says content doesn't mean it has to be a 20-page white paper or a polished video. It could be a statistic. It could be an infographic. It could be some small visual that answers a particular question for a prospect that helps them move forward. So I think knowing precisely what that buying journey looks like for a particular customer, knowing precisely what a specific member of the buying committee is likely to need at different stages allows you to create more custom, more meaningful, and more impactful content at each stage. So yeah, I think this all comes down to having the right content at the right time to move the conversation forward.
I find it's interesting, like CMI, like the Content Marketing Institute's really taking a big focus on intelligent content management now. And I think that focus, if companies start to look at that, can really figure out better ways to create and reuse and repackage content more easily to support these types of programs, as well as, I'm sure they still do their lead gen and their demand gen, because it's not kind of a one and only, it's a combination of everything you need to do.
Right.
Yeah. So what about metrics then? Most of the time you hear with the ABM that you don't want traditional metrics. They don't really mean as much, like the visits and the click-throughs and so on. Is there a defined set of metrics that ABM marketers need to look at?
Well, the nice thing, one of the benefits of account-based is that it really sort of forces both sales and marketing to have the same goal. If I'm focused on a particular set of accounts, I'm going to measure my results based on how many of those accounts turn into opportunities and how many of those close into new customers. I think that ultimately the success of account-based is measured by velocity and conversion of those accounts into closed deals and revenue. But the early indicators of account-based success are seen in initial conversations and engagement. So what we often recommend clients do is look at the past 6 to 12 months with those target accounts and establish a baseline of what you've been doing in terms of getting them engaged in your fishing with net environment. And now in the next 4 to 6 months, you should be measuring an increase in engagement. You should be measuring an increase in the number of accounts that you're having a two-way conversation with, the number of contacts within accounts that you're seeing engaged with your content, the number of active conversations with target accounts that you're having with your sales team. So there's the long-term goal of sales and revenue, and then there's the short-term goal of increasing the velocity of conversations and engagement that lead to more sales.
I know there's different tiers of ABM. The metrics kind of change depending on what tier you're looking at, because I like the tier 3 is more just account-based advertising, so your metrics are different, right, than what they would be if you were, the tier 2 and the tier 1 type customers that you're going after.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that, and I think that some of that is based on the economics of your sale, right? I mean, not all account-based targets are equal. There may be some that are worth many times more than the other in terms of closed deals and lifetime value. So the amount of money and the effort you're willing to put into getting those very top-tier account-based targets into an active conversation, you're willing to spend more. So I think it's important to not just sort of have an overall goal for those that are in your account-based program versus in your commercial demand gen program, but also to understand the economics of your funnel. What does it cost, but what is it worth to get prospects into, middle and later stages of the funnel, so that you can put the right resources into making that happen in a more predictable, repeatable, scalable way.
Okay, that makes sense. So what is your advice for the marketer who wants to do ABM, but's kind of lost in like all the information that's out there, like so many different things, so many playbooks and white papers and webinars and stuff? Like, feel like we're kind of in that ABM overload, information overload, the way we've been in lead gen a couple of years ago. Like, where do they get started? What do they do?
Yeah. Well, I think, first and foremost, I would recommend that they measure what success looks like. Before justifying a bunch of new technology and a bunch more coordination between sales and marketing, I would attempt to figure out what is it worth for us to do account-based marketing work. We developed an ROI calculator for companies that are trying to justify ABM, and we use some analyst data to indicate, just how much more sales, how much incremental sales could happen with tighter sales and marketing coordination. And so, what we find is that, with many organizations that want to do account-based marketing, going to your CFO, going to your sales team and saying, listen, based on benchmark data, I believe with ABM, we can increase our sales by X% this year. Or in the trailing 12 months, if we had an ABM program in place, I believe it could have generated an extra 12 million, 20 million, 40 million, whatever it is in sales, whatever that ROI calculator comes out to. And so your push to do ABM is based not on a bunch of tactics and buying a bunch of technology. It's based on the opportunity it represents in greater sales and revenue.
I get that. I think that's a great place to leave it, because I think people need to understand the importance of doing it. So that was a quick conversation, but we covered a lot of stuff, so I really appreciate that. Thank you, Matt.
Of course.
And so thank you, everyone, for listening. Again, the Content Matters podcast, we talk to everybody about digital experience, and on behalf of Ingenix, I just want to say thank you for coming today, and thanks, Matt, for talking with us.
Thank you.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.